So it's a humongous growth, but still as a proportion of the population still continues to be untapped. So I think that is kind of the big question that we all have, saying, okay, so how big can this thing get, and how far can it go? But obviously all of the trends are positive, are pushing forward. And I apologize a little bit, I'm jet lagged from yesterday, so I'm losing my voice, but a good Coke. Anyway, it's always refreshing. I'm doing the plug. Okay, policies that change the world. I think that we all know that there's certain things that have been policies that have had significant effects, and some of them positive, some of them negative. And I want to provide a little bit of further thoughts on one in particular that came about in the last 30 years. And again, this is not a statement about is it positive or negative. It's more a statement about the dramatic impact that it had not only on China, but more importantly for us, obviously, on the behavior that we're seeing on the digital space. The policy that we're talking about is the one-child policy. Essentially, in 1979, it was strengthened the policy of, in China, you can only have one child, which the intent was to tap the growth of an already very big population down to a more manageable level of a population size. The result was moving from a 3% population growth back then to what is now around a 1%. If you look at this, and there's some historians and some sociologists that have looked at this, and experts, and they claim that this may very well be the single largest policy ever made in terms of the amount of people that have been affected. It runs in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 million people that were never born. That's an incredible amount of people. That's like saying the entire United States was never born, because 300 million people actually, as a result of less population growth in the policy of one child. So putting that in perspective, then you start getting a sense as to, wow, this is really big. But what I want to talk about is not so much the number, which the number is very big, but a little bit of what's behind that number. Because what you now have in China is actually a society that is built on the premise of a one child. It is, again, from a sociological perspective, it's very interesting to try to understand what is the effect on this one child. One child, again, could be that kid that is up there. In China, they call them little emperors. It is the 4-to-1 family: 4 grandparents, 2 parents. 4 grandparents, 2 parents, 1 kid. All the love, all the affection, but also all the pressure, all of the commitments to the family are put against one child. So it's a big responsibility that they're carrying on their shoulders. For this one child at school, it's a different picture. The ratio of students in China is high, because obviously there's a lot of kids that need to be educated, and the educational system is very dogmatic, very top-down. So what you really have is basically a one-way communication, a one-way way of teaching, and again, high pressure, because the need to succeed is extremely high. So it's individualism is not really what is the play. The play is a lot more of top-down educational structure. So this one child obviously is online. This one child accounts for half of the online population of China. So understanding what makes this one child move, what are the insights, is fundamental for us as brands to really understand how best to communicate with them. It's also important for us to understand where they are and where they are connecting. In the case of China, again, the phenomenon of cyber cafes, for instance, is huge. Part of the reason is convenience. Part of the reason is that the equipment obviously is better than whatever they would have at home or that they don't have at home. But part of it is also social, because again, as I said before, you are an only child. So your third place, the place where you get to hang out with friends, very well could be the cyber cafe. So in your time out, you want to go out and be able to connect with friends. For how long? Increasingly, more and more. I think by latest accounts, China, out of free time, is actually the highest in Asia, surpassing Korea and surpassing Japan. it's huge. Now, they don't have the same amount of free time because of what we talked about before in terms of the amount of pressure that they have on schooling, but it's increasing and increasing the amount of time that they're spending there. A little bit of a detour just to put something on perspective. For those of you that are parents, probably you have a feeling that you are living and talking different languages with your kids. I would argue that there is nowhere else in the world that this gap between parents and kids is bigger than in China. And what I want to show you is a couple of snapshots as to what that life of that father and that son, or father and daughter, or whatever, would be in China, just so you understand the contrast and why it is that basically there is no point of reference. There's a common language but not a point of reference. For that, this was entertainment 30 years ago. I mean, basically community ping pong or whatever, and probably not a whole lot of leisure time. For the kids, an entirely different environment. One of very much about creating my space, my entertainment, my friends, etc. For the parents, probably role models were limited to revolutionary figures and people of that, and obviously for the kids, it's celebrities. And celebrities in China, you have to also understand, are huge because, again, maybe founded on the fact that there are no brothers, sisters, and you basically don't understand your father that much. A lot of what they are and what they feel is actually channeled through the celebrities. So celebrity status, celebrity power in China is huge. And obviously the desire, which is a global phenomenon as well, of becoming one of the celebrities of the future. Eating habits, again, probably dad didn't have that many options and was basically community kitchens type of a thing. Increasingly in China, the phenomenon that we have around the world, fast food, on the go, is also taking stock. Media, I mean, obviously we know the story. Media is basically different around the world and has transformed itself in the last 10, 15 years. But in China, you have obviously the difference is obviously the amount of media that you had access to and obviously the scale. Friendships is something very interesting because at first sight, you would look at this and say there was a lot more community going on, a lot more free time spending with your friends. This is probably the reality of that. But when you look at this today, you say the amount of friends per se probably has decreased. There seems to be a little bit of more loneliness because of so much time that is being spent here. But the amount of friends that they have online is huge, and they even have friends that they've never met. And I think that's kind of it's an interesting dilemma to a certain degree because it would be difficult to account. Are they lonelier or not? For that, probably there wasn't a lot of options back then in terms of what looking cool could be. I think it was pretty, I mean, the definition of how much can you go away from that outfit was probably limited. Today it's all about identity. It's about telling who you are. I mean, your own look, your coolness, etc. is represented and mostly online. Another Coke break. So what happens when these only children go online? And this to us is extremely important because that's the behavior that we want to understand and the one that we want to actually engage with. The first thing they absolutely do is that they want to connect with friends. There is a national pastime, if you want, and that is why QQ and primarily QQ is so absolutely outstandingly huge. It is because basically these kids, first thing they do in the morning, they want to log in and they just basically want to know where everyone is. So connection with friends is extremely, extremely important. As I said before, the fact that you know or don't know the friends that are online really doesn't make a difference. It's a great place to meet people. It's a great place to date. It's a great place to do a whole bunch of things. This is a phenomenon that obviously, and a lot of the things that I'm saying probably are similar to a lot of the markets that all of you work in. But I think that in the case of China, it's particularly interesting because physical space is something that is extremely limited as well. So the definition of when I have my time off, what do I do? I mean, where do I go? Is actually very limited. So therefore, whatever you have, your universe online becomes that much more important because this is that moment, that hour, that 2 hours or whatever that you have to yourself and to create your own space. A second extremely important thing that happens online, and it's actually interesting as well, is this feeling of individualism and collectivism to a certain degree. There is a big desire to actually be part of something bigger, show your collective pride. We tapped into it, and we'll show you an example in a second. During the Beijing Olympics, people wanted to be volunteers, they wanted to participate, they wanted to show their love for the country and their excitement for the gold medals, etc. And that certainly is there. The flip side of that was also seen during the Sichuan tragedy, the earthquake, when basically all of the websites turned black and the mood entirely shifted, and the expressions of love, the expressions of support, of sending well wishes to the people in Sichuan were absolutely off the charts. So there is an absolute desire to tell a bigger story, not just basically my space, my things, but I also participate in something bigger. Express themselves. Oops. Well, that one went quick. There is a definite desire to tell a story. I mean, remember, there is a universe out there of 1.3 billion people, and individuality is very important now. And say, listen, I also have a story to tell. And what you missed a second ago because I was going too fast is 80% or so of the college kids have blogs, and the blogs are their space and their way to tell the story, of course. I make a small parenthesis on this because I think this is important. From our perspective in the West, there is an interpretation, I guess, that creativity in China is nothing more than copying someone else, and at that probably even doing it poorly. That's not what we're seeing online. Online, what we're seeing is basically an evolution from basically just cut and paste and not do a very good job at it, to one of creating their own story. And I think that what we are tapping into is this funness of being creative. This basically let it out and be yourself. And this is something, and we'll show you a couple of examples in a second, which we think there's a huge amount of opportunity, because normally you would say there probably isn't this geyser of creativity waiting to come out. And I think that we've been proven wrong. So the four key drivers, as we see them, are connection, are an opportunity to demonstrate pride, an opportunity to express themselves, and an opportunity to have a creative platform and be able to have just creativity for the sake of creativity, very, very pure. So the question is, as brands, how do we tap into these? And what I'll show you in a second is a few examples, which by no means are comprehensive, of the kind of things that we've done in China to tap into these four pillars. I think this needs audio. I think we need audio on this.
So 我是无限精彩，迎接。
be happening right now. The videos are running. Was it me? Well, we missed the whole video, I guess. I don't know. We can go back, but I don't know. Or I can go forward. Well, technical glitches are. I should just go forward, I guess. Well, I'll share them with you. They're really good. But essentially, what we've done is tapped into all the different ideas, I guess, that we were talking about before. We've done this inviting consumers. The next platform, if I'm not mistaken, is the first Coke of the Year platform, in that we basically invited consumers to tell us, who do you want to share your first Coke of the Year. So we actually initiated a new ritual. As you know, Chinese New Year is a huge opportunity in China, and it was a way to do a very, very emotional connection through digital, basically telling consumers, who is that unique person you want to share? Tell us your story. And then it was just this download, and unfortunately it's not there, of some phenomenal consumer-generated videos and stories. Very personal, very passionate. And it, again, going back to what we were talking about before, is basically just giving the opportunity to tell that. There was another example on, and I'm sorry I have to tell you and not show you, but apparently we had some glitch about Minute Maid as well. Again, an invitation to say, how do you enjoy Minute Maid? Tell us your ritual. Let's establish a ritual. And then these things just basically take off. And at the end, there may be a video that I can show you of what we did with Coke and Food, which we actually got a nomination for. So I'll show you that. So anyway, moving forward, I think this is, again, our perception on this is there is still an incredible amount of upside to what's happening in China. It is extremely exciting. It's extremely fast. I can't tell you what it is, because if anyone tells you that, then I guess they're lying, because there is no crystal ball. But I think that all trends point at least in the right direction. The kind of things to watch for, and not watch out, but watch for, are a few. One of them is this growing rural population. The amount, the internet phenomenon in China at the beginning was basically a metro phenomenon. Probably the wealthier part of the country was the one that had the privilege. There's a number of policies, there's a number of pushes to actually make this more universal in China. To put it in perspective, you're talking about 454 million people under 35 that live in rural China. In other words, there's 454 million people waiting to plug in and dying to plug in. So that's just to establish a little bit of the magnitude of the challenge. And for us as brands, we need to also know what is happening. How do you talk now to a much broader audience? Mobile is another thing that is a big area of opportunity. The prevalence of obviously of mobile in China is huge, but it's late generation texting. 3G came later. It's just starting. For us as brand owners, here's where we start scratching our head and saying, if this thing goes to where we think it's going to go, the opportunities, the applications of these are just going to be mind-boggling. So it could be a game changer. Ongoing dialogue. I think that the days of us arrogantly trying to tell the consumer what he is supposed to feel about our brand and leaving the dialogue there are over. Now the days are of mutual two-way communication. Now there is no going back. It is basically a two-way relationship. It is about creating relevant platforms. It's about inviting them to be part of your brand story. And I think, again, there is no going back on this. And breakthrough. Breakthrough is the name of the game in China. I think I've had several conversations today of people asking me and what are they looking for and what it is, and I would say, anything that was yesterday is no longer relevant. They're looking for tomorrow. What is happening tomorrow? Where is the next step? And it is actually a society that is pulling on the greatest, the biggest. What is that idea? That's the next idea that's out there. So for all of you that have or are looking at opportunities there, I would say these are at least a few pointers for you to keep in mind. I think there's ample opportunities. I think there's also a lot of challenges. And for anyone that's going to be going there, I wish you all the best. I will try to play one more bonus track because you didn't get to see the others, and let's see if this one runs. Wow, but there was more to that one as well. Anyway, well, that's the end of the presentation. I apologize for the video, but essentially what you're seeing, and it is first generation, we just got a couple of Spikes Awards in Asia for that campaign, is basically, again, the invitation of consumers to be part of the ad. They could then send it over to their friends and say, hey, I'm here in this ad with Fahrenheit, which is a very popular band in China. And then basically just continuing to pass it along. So it was extremely successful, and we're very pleased with it. So that's all the time I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andres Kiger, Senior Director of Integrated Marketing, Coca Cola China. Thank you very much. It was really quite interesting to see where the similarities and the differences are between these markets, and if you create campaigns. I think it's fair enough to say that, especially from the European perspective, we have to step into this more. We have to look at the market much more than the past, to look for some great ideas also for Europe. And I think it's not the end of the road, so we will come back to this next year again and have to check what's happening there. I mean, it's one of the biggest markets and best growing markets, especially on online advertising. So I think it's a really exciting experience to be over there.
Yep, it is.
So thanks again for coming and joining your experiences and giving your insights. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, a quick break again, just 2-3 minutes, and we are continuing with with an international perspective. The next 30 minutes we are looking more to specific to East European markets.